Isn't inflating dollar the easiest way out of the current and future crisis? Yeah, I mean, it is, but it doesn't get you out of the crisis, because you've got to remember what is the crisis, right? And what you're doing is, in my opinion, you're making a little bit of a mistake in that you're assuming the crisis is debt. And at face value, it would seem that way. But I would argue the crisis isn't necessarily the debt. The crisis is the distortions in the economy that racking up all that debt produced, right? That's just like that whiteboard video I did the other day on doing a debt jubilee in Japan, because the Bank of Japan owns 60% of government debt. So if you've got all those JGBs that are assets on the central bank's balance sheet and liabilities on the government's balance sheet, why not just come in, you hit the delete button, and who would ever know? Like, if they didn't announce it, would anyone even know? Because you're only affecting those two balance sheets, and it's just an electronic digital entry. But my argument was, maybe the yen doesn't tank, maybe it does. Maybe the economy doesn't implode, but the damage has been done. There's no going back. The damage was done when you took the debt from, let's call it 100% of GDP up to 250% or wherever it is now, because of how that distorts and destroys the economy by misallocating resources. And the example I used was a heroin addict that runs up a $100,000 credit card bill buying heroin to become an addict. Well, if you come in and give that person a debt jubilee, does that help them out? Is it, hey, your debt's gone? No, because the damage was all the heroin that they did to accumulate the $100,000 in debt. In fact, I would argue they're worse off, because now they've got a clean balance sheet where they can go out and buy another $100,000 worth of heroin and just become worse of an addict and destroy their body even more than they've already destroyed it, their body and mind. And it's the same exact thing with the economy. The economy has done all of those drugs, and that's how they accumulated the debt. So just by taking the balance sheet, it doesn't unhook the economy from the drugs. And think about all the zombie corporations in Japan right now. Do those go away if you have a debt jubilee? No, they're still there. And think about right now in the United States. We say, oh, well, we've got 27 trillion in debt and all the 5 trillion deficit. Yeah, I get it. And if we could just get rid of the debt problem. Well, is that really the problem when government spending is almost 60% of the entire economy? Government spending is almost 60% of GDP. 60. So the private sector only accounts for 40% of total economic output. So even if we got rid of the 27 trillion in debt, does that somehow change the fact that the private sector only accounts for 40% of economic output? No. If anything, it makes it worse, because now the Fed's balance sheet is free, the federal government, their balance sheet is clear to go ahead and run up another 27 trillion in debt. And who knows where we get to then. Is the government, do they account for 90% of the economy? If so, if the wealth is measured by the amount of goods and services a society can produce efficiently, which I think it is, and it's not measured by M1 money supply or M2 money supply or whatever. Who cares how many green currency units you have in your bank account if there are no goods and services to buy, right? It's that whole desert island type thing. If you've got $1 billion on a desert island, are you rich or poor? You're poor, because all you got's a coconut and some salt water, regardless of how many billions of dollars you have, right? So that's really the way I think we need to look at the wealth or lack thereof in the economy. And it doesn't have, it's wiping away the debt doesn't solve that problem. And then, of course, you've got to look at the Eurodollar system. You've got to look at the global monetary system. That's broken. And getting rid of the debt doesn't fix that. It's still the broken Eurodollar system that we need to figure out how to resolve, or how to create a new system. And why is that important? Because in order to create more global GDP or more wealth, let's use that term. In order to create more wealth, we have to create more goods and services. That requires capital. That requires banks lending to those entities out there that are demand or that have demand for productive loans. And when I mean productive loans, I mean people that can take that additional capital that's created by the banking system or whomever and turn that into goods and services created at a profit that's sustainable, that's creating jobs and creating a higher standard of living for everyone, right? So now that system is totally broken. And you have to have that system in place in order for economies to grow and to become more wealthy, right? So that's what I'd suggest you focusing on instead of maybe just focusing on the debt, because that's really a symptom. That's not the core problem, in my opinion.